The Senate fundraising numbers are in, and it's not great for Republicans. Democrats raised 2.5 times as much money. It's $203 million to the GOP's $83 million. So here to discuss is Hal Lambert. He's the founder of Point Bridge Capital, and he created the MAGA stock index and politically responsible investing strategy. So Hal, how do the Democrats they always seem to lead Republicans in fundraising? Why does this happen year after year?
Well, I think there's a few reasons, actually. I think, one, their Act Blue system, which is where they go to contribute online. I think it's been around longer than the Republican side, and I think it's just better in general. And let's face it, they have the social media companies, the large ones. They can push that message out. They know everything about all of us, so they know what buttons to push to get people to give money, and that's a huge advantage. I don't think people talk about that enough, but Google and Facebook and Instagram and all these things out there, all the social media, they know all about us, and the Democrats can use that to help raise money. We're cut off from that. They're obviously not going to help us with that. We've got to recreate it ourselves and try to do it ourselves, and I think that's the other big advantage. And then finally, you've got to be really wealthy to be a Democrat these days. I mean, the ultra wealthy are Democrats. Now, of course, there's Elon Musk that's come on board just recently, right? Just very recently. But other than that, all the ultra wealthy people in this country, they're all giving money mostly to the Democrats. There's a handful on the Republican side, but Mark Zuckerberg and those guys stepped up huge in 2020. There always seem to be multiple billionaires that are ready to write any size check to keep those policies in place that they like.
Yeah, let's talk about this with Musk, because it seems like it's something that ties maybe to some of the other things we're going to talk about today, which is this surge in at least a few people at that level coming out for Trump. And it seems like Musk is obviously the biggest dog, right, who has come out. But there's other people in tech who have come out for Trump, and it's remarkable because most people at that level do not. What do you make of this?
Well, I think it shows you how scary Kamala Harris's policies must be, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, for them to come out and do this for the first time, as you said, a number of tech people, they've had some really high dollar fundraisers in San Francisco this time around for Donald Trump, which didn't happen before, but that's because specifically some of these tech guys have come out in support of him. And again, I think they're looking at it going, this is crazy, these policies. Let's start with, taxing unrealized capital gains. That's going to hit a lot of these people, and, it makes no sense. I mean, you're really just destroying companies when you do that. If you're going to force the sale of stocks or private companies, how do you even pay the tax if you have a private company? What do you sell? So those policies and those types of things, I think, have really driven people away from Kamala Harris, especially on the economic side.
Now, you're not new to this game. You've been around for a long time, but you did create the MAGA ETF. So what led you to create that?
Well, yeah, I've been in the investment business a very long time. I launched my firm, Point Bridge Capital, about 11 years ago. And I started to realize, look, there's nothing out there on the conservative side. And really what kind of spurred me to do this was I'm sitting in my office one morning, and it came out on the news that Target was going to open their restrooms to transgender, their dressing rooms. It didn't matter what gender you were. It was open for all of that. And I thought, wow, this is not going to be good for the stock. I actually owned it for client portfolios, and I sold it that morning. And sure enough, there were protests and people coming out against Target. We've seen it with Nike and Disney and other companies. I thought, guys, they're out there protesting. They don't realize they own these same stocks in their mutual funds at their 401ks in different places. And I started looking at, well, there's nothing out there on the Republican side. There was all these Democrat funds, the ESG funds and all of that have been out there for a long time. Zero on the Republican side. And so I started looking at it. I was like, well, how do I create something for people to invest in based on their political ideology? And that's what spurred it. And I launched it. It's now been over 7 years ago. Ticker is MAGA. So that was nice timing. It actually won Ticker of the Year in 2017, which I was very surprised about, considering it was a New York-based group that was giving those awards out. But I don't think it'd win today. MAGA's too controversial today, but it did win back then, and it's done really well. It's been a great opportunity and an offer for people to be able to invest in.
I think this is incredibly important for everyone out there to hear, that people like you are doing this and to think about in their own lives. And I mean, I suppose the way in which what you're talking about is really people's money being hijacked by the other side. So, even in your 401k, these pension funds, these states, they're taking your money and using it politically. And I mean, as you know, that's difficult for the right to think about finance this way. but I believe firmly we have to if we're going to win. So talk a little bit about politically responsible investing. What do you mean by this?
Well, it was kind of a play on socially responsible investing, which had been around for a while, which was the whole soft thing, which is, hey, this isn't about shareholders, this is about stakeholders, and we've got to take into account everybody in the world on what decisions we're going to make as a company. And it really was detrimental to shareholders. And political responsibility, I'm like, people need to be responsible with their money, make investments that support the companies that they're supporting. And you're seeing this more and more today, right? We're seeing a lot of commercials now with a new credit card company that's now going to focus on conservative. I was 7 years ahead of the game, I think, from the standpoint of that. And you're starting to see people do that with their money. They realize, look, I need to be supporting businesses that have my views. There's a few monopolies out there we can't get away from. That's what's frustrating. Obviously, Apple's very left, right? So most of us have iPhones. The other choice is Samsung. But who knows? Maybe we'll have an X phone with Elon Musk soon, right? He's talked about it. So hopefully there's going to be other options. Luckily, for us, he did buy Twitter, so we're going to hold up some free speech there. But look, it was getting really dark out there for conservatives. We just didn't have a lot of places to turn, and I think people do need to think about it when they're investing. And I'm not saying that you don't want to lose money, obviously, but I think if you're trying to decide between things to invest in, I think it's worth looking at.
Can you give a few examples of this, like how this works in practice?
Yeah.
With companies that are out there, because one of the objections would be, well, wait a minute, we need to make money. While we're looking at who aligns with us, how does this connect to making money?
Well, I'll talk about that. So one, let me just say this: investpolitically.com is actually the website for the ETF. So investpolitically.com, but it'll have all this information on there. But I didn't want to be the person deciding, is this company conservative or not conservative? I started saying, well, let's look at where they give their money, because money is what really matters. We just talked about money in politics. Where are these companies giving their money? I screened the S&P 500 for the top Republican supporting companies from their PACs and their employees. And I took the top Republican supporting companies at the federal level in the S&P 500 to create this ETF. I've also now added an overlay where I wanted at least half I want it to be a U.S.-based, America first. I thought about it from the standpoint of number of employees that are based in the U.S. That number is not really readily available. That data is not. So I'm looking at least 50% of the assets have to be in the U.S. So this is America First ETF with contributing to Republicans. And I think that makes a big difference politically. And then if you look at the performance on it, I equally weighted these. And if you look at it on an equally weighted basis, it is outperforming the S&P 500 on almost every period that you look at: 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year period. So it's done well. So again, over 11% a year compounded. In fact, we just hit our 52-week high today. Just over $50 a share, and I launched at $25 a share, and I've paid a dividend of 1.5% to 2% a year. So it's over doubled in 7 years, just being in the market. So, and again, I'm not asking people. I don't want people to lose money or give up opportunities. What we're trying to do is create other opportunities that also align with their values.
I love that. And Hal, you're not only in on the investing side, you also donate a lot to the Republicans as well. So I want to ask you where we are right now with about 20 days or so to go until the election. I mean, we are seeing Elon Musk, like we said, he put $75 into a super PAC for Donald Trump. How is that going down the stretch now in these crucial days?
Well, right now, it's all about voter turnout, right? I mean, you're not going to change anybody's opinion at this point. So that money that Elon Musk is spending, that I believe is all for voter turnout, focused in specific states. Pennsylvania is obviously a huge key state. There's other PACs focused on the same thing, getting those hard to reach. Maybe they vote once every 4, 6 years, 8 years. They don't vote that often, but they're Republican. You can identify them as a Republican. You get out there, it's door to door saying, hey, please get your ballot turned in. That's what's going on. That's where this money's spent. Television ads at this point, they're going to be all over the place, but I don't think that's going to move the needle. This is going to be getting those voters turned out, getting those early voters, getting those ballots turned, people to turn their ballots in and vote.
Do you have any thoughts about what's going to happen?
It looks good. I read a Brookings Institute, and they're certainly left-leaning. This was about a month ago, and it was a really interesting stat. They looked at 2016 and 2020, and if you looked at those two cycles, Trump outperformed his polling by 5 points in what they called the blue wall states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So if you look at it now, if he's tied going in or slightly up is what he is right now in all those states, is he up by 5? because that's what it was in 2020 and 2016. He outperformed that polling by 5 points. So in Michigan, as an example, in 2020, he lost Michigan, but he was predicted to lose by 7. He lost by 2. So that's what I mean by outperforming the final polling. So, it looks really good. He's polling now better than he ever has in either of the 2016 or 2020 cycles against the opponent.
Do you think in terms of fundraising now, just what you've seen over the last year, that how does that track with previous years?
Well, I mean, look, the Democrats have outraised us. It's certainly down ballot in a big way. They've at the top of the ticket. Trump was massively outraised against Hillary, though. So there's only so much that money can do. It's very important. Quite frankly, it's more important down ballot. And that's where a lot of this, are we going to pick up some Senate seats? I'm hopeful that if Trump can win Pennsylvania, do we pick up that Senate seat, right? Those are the kind of things that if he can win by enough in Arizona, can we squeak out a Senate seat in Arizona? Those are going to be the things to look at on election night. Obviously, we want Trump to win, and everybody's cautious here because we look at it and go, Pennsylvania's already announced they're not going to have election night results. So we're going to have to wait days to get their results, which is infuriating, okay? They're half the size of the state of Florida. Florida's going to have their election results within a few hours of the polls closing. And yet Pennsylvania's already said, oh, no, it's going to take us days.
It's the second world or third world. Really
it's unbelievable. And that is what creates the situation where people don't have faith in elections. If you go into those 2 or 3 days leading and you come out, they just keep counting ballots, that's a problem.
All right, we're here in Texas. You live here.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Senate. Everybody's trying to say Ted Cruz and Colin Allred, oh my gosh, watch out for this seat in Texas this time around. Every year, Hal, we hear about, oh, Texas is going to turn blue. You better watch out. Do we have to worry this year?
Well, it's close, but I think Ted's going to pull it out. I watched the debate the other night. He had a debate just last night. I think he just cleaned his clock last night. Colin Allred couldn't defend any of his votes. Ted kept going back to the record. Colin was more personal on his attacks. It wasn't record-oriented. Ted stayed focused on what the voting record was. I think he did an excellent job. Yes, I think he'll pull it out, but they want to spend this money. They spend this money here every single time the Democrats pump in. He's been outspent, I think, 3-1 here in Texas. And at some point, they're hopeful they're going to switch it, but I don't think it'll be this time.
Hal, tell everybody where they can find out more about your products.
Sure. Yeah. Investpolitically.com is the website for the ETF, and Point Bridge Capital is my firm, and I'm in Texas, so I'm pretty easy to find.